There is a great effort underway to cartoonize Jesus Christ and to pretend a whole series of things about Jesus Christ. And there is a cottage industry of TikTok theologians. And this is something that I'm going to want to dig into on the program. And if you're not Christian, I hope you'll consider accepting Jesus, but you should know how this is being done to our culture. Because it's related to the same way that our culture has been changed by saying things like, well, we can't possibly deport a whole series of illegal immigrants, and vitamin D is very, very bad for you, and being outside is very, very bad for you. It's a series of lies that come out to sloganeering. One of their approaches to talking about Jesus is to do it in 30-second video formats. And we'll be spending some time on this the next few weeks with these TikTok theologians. And in these quick and well-done videos, some of them with really good animation, they'll say things like, there were never any witnesses to the resurrection. There were never any witnesses who saw Jesus risen. Or they'll say, certainly no one outside the circle saw that. There were no contemporaries. No one wrote about it at the time. Only decades later, sometimes 100 years later, that all of a sudden the story came that he rose from the dead. This is one of their main tactics. That Jesus died, they all knew he died, but then some people came in and said, yeah, but his sayings still last. His sayings are still promoted. So let's use these sayings and let's make it seem like he came back to life. So we see these things, and how do we counter them? If only it was easy, and guess what? It's actually very, very easy if you simply pay attention to who was around at the time and what they said at the time. So I'll share some ways to do this with you in just a second, because it's important for us to be able to defend the faith. And if you're not Christian, it's important for you to understand what you're missing out on. I'll explain this in a second. You might be missing out on a great bit of protection for your body, a vital bit of protection for your body. If you're like 80% of Americans, you are short on magnesium. Okay, and that means A, you're probably going to be lacking good quality sleep. It means B, you're probably going to feel an extra load of stress because magnesium helps regulate the stress hormone cortisol. C, you're probably going to be irregular, which can put a ton of stress on your organs and really screw up your sleep. And by the way, it can make you extra thirsty and you're not even really using the water. It's a mess. But D, lack of magnesium actually opens a door to your DNA, according to a new study. It creates an open pathway to your DNA. I personally would rather not have my DNA messed with because I think God did a really good job of writing our DNA. It's yet another reason to subscribe to Magnesium Breakthrough at bioptimizers.com/Todd. When you go to bioptimizers.com/Todd, you subscribe to Magnesium Breakthrough. You'll never run out of product. You, I think, will experience better sleep, more regularity, lack of stress. And when you subscribe to Magnesium Breakthrough, you're going to get exclusive discounts and exclusive free offers from our friends at Bioptimizers. Go to bioptimizers.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get 10% off all their products. And when you subscribe, you get those extra benefits. So the claims are these. No one witnessed the resurrection. No one actually saw it. And certainly no one outside of Jesus' circle ever made this claim. No one documented it. No one. Well, except a lot of people. First of all, up to 5,000 people ultimately saw the resurrected Jesus, beginning with Mary, who went to the tomb, and then going to the other apostles, some of whom refused to believe. Thomas famously said, I'll not believe until I touch him. And then Jesus transfigured through the walls and came in and showed himself and allowed Thomas to touch his wounds. So when Thomas touched his wounds, Jesus said, you have seen, so you believe, but blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. And Jesus was talking about us. So I'll give you an example of one of these videos here in a second and how easy it is to do away with. So that claim falls to the wayside. The other claim that falls to the wayside is that no one outside of the apostles believed this, well, except for Flavius Josephus, born Yosef ben Matthieu, a Roman Jewish historian and military leader. He was a Jewish historian born just a few years after Jesus died. His most celebrated passage, called the Testimonium Flavianum, states, now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, It be lawful to call him a man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jew, many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, he says, had condemned him to the cross, those who loved him at first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them fully alive again on the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold, and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And the tribe of Christians, so named for him, are not extinct to this day. That was Josephus. Suetonius was a Roman historian and analyst of the imperial house. In his biography of Nero ruled AD 5468, Suetonius mentions the persecution of Christians by indirectly referring to the resurrection. Punishment was inflicted on the Christians, that's how they said it at the time, Christians, a class of men given to a new and mischievous superstition. Mischievous meaning the resurrection. So they knew that people were talking about the resurrected Jesus at the time, just after this happened. Pliny the Younger wrote a letter to the Emperor Trajan around AD 111, describing the early Christian worship gatherings that met early on Sunday mornings in its memory of Jesus' resurrection day. I've never been present at an examination of Christians. Consequently, I do not know the nature or the extent of the punishments usually meted out to them, nor the grounds for starting an investigation and how far it should be pressed. They also declared that the sum total of their guilt or error amounted to no more than this, that they met regular before dawn on a fixed day, Sunday, in remembrance of Jesus' resurrection, to chant verses, alternately amongst themselves in honor of Christ as if to a god. It doesn't end there. There were people who went home to Africa after Peter delivered his first sermon in front of about 5,000 men, meaning maybe up to 20,000 people if they had their wives and families there. Peter spoke in front of the people who probably killed Jesus, at least his body, and he spoke openly. This was a guy who'd been in hiding until then. So if you listen to the claims of the TikTok theologians, understand this. Most people who watch things like this are never going to do the simple tiny bit of research that if you're educated, you know in your mind. But if you want to share with others, takes about 15 seconds, even on the Google machine. Here's one such TikTok theologian. I'll show you this right now.
They say Jesus rose from the dead, but where's the evidence? You'd think the most important event in human history would have left something behind. An eyewitness account, a Roman record, anything. But nope, not a single contemporary historian even mentions it. The Gospels, written decades later by anonymous authors copying each other. The empty tomb, just a story, no body, no proof. Faith is nice, but facts matter. And the fact is, the resurrection has as much evidence as any other ancient myth. None.
None. We know more about Jesus Christ than we do about William Shakespeare. Who was he? Well, he was Bill Shakespeare. Nope, pen name. Who was he really? Don't know. It's the most examined book in history, the Bible. And eyewitnesses, these are the things that we've seen and testified to you. Those eyewitnesses, the 12, the new 12, after the traitor went to death, all voluntarily died. I mean, they didn't ask for it, but they knew it was coming because Jesus told them it was coming. All but John was killed. They couldn't kill John. Tradition tells us they tried to kill John in multiple ways, including boiling him in oil. They couldn't get it done. It's John who wrote the book of Revelation. For people to go from hiding in an upstairs room, cowering for fear of the Jewish religious authorities and the Romans, to giving a speech in front of 5,000 to 20,000 people, to refusing to stop, even when they were told we're going to kill you, to like the Apostle Paul, who knew he was going to be beheaded, and all he had to do was stop. Instead, he spent his time in prison teaching his captors about Jesus Christ. Those aren't witnesses, eyewitnesses to a resurrection. You better believe they are.